Jonas, welcome to Rudaw and welcome to Kurdistan.
Thank you very much.
So it's your first time in Kurdistan. Tell me, how are you feeling to be in Erbil?
Thank you. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I came to Kurdistan for the first time yesterday. I'm the Swedish ambassador in Iraq since August. So I'm quite new in that function, and it's quite natural to me to come to Kurdistan also very early on. But today I've been received at the highest level by the president of the regional government, by the prime minister, the deputy prime minister, and now here also with you.
Okay, welcome. What do you think about Erbil? How do you feel about this city?
I feel that I'm in a different place from Baghdad. I feel another flavor, another language, another slightly different climate. And the little I've seen, it feels like a very dynamic place.
I see. Okay, so you're also new to Iraq, and as soon as you arrived, there was the elections in Iraq. What do you see in the country? What do you expect after the elections, and what's the Swedish point of view when it comes to the Iraqi politics?
Well, Sweden, as also part of the European Union, we were very supportive of the elections, and we're trying to do our best to be a partner with Iraq in its pursuit of stability, of the building of democratic institutions, and of economic prosperity. So Sweden, as part of the European Union, were supportive of the elections. We had an electoral observation mission to the elections, which issued a preliminary report after the elections, and then will after a couple of months issue a sort of final report.
So what does the first report of your observation delegation tell about the elections in Iraq? Because, you know, there are disputes, there are like different discourses about how the elections were. What does your observation
Well, I mean,
say?
the head of the observation, the mission was led by a European parliamentarian, German parliamentarian Viola von Krammen. She held a press conference the day after, which highlighted some positive signs, like that the elections took place in a very peaceful atmosphere. There was very few incidents of violence, and also that it was technically a very well prepared elections. Now, that press conference was held before the sort of dispute on recounting came up. So that is an issue that will be addressed on a later stage by the same observation.
I see. And the day of election, were you in Baghdad?
No, I was part of the observation team with the colleague at the embassy and my colleagues from the Norwegian and Finnish embassies.
And where did you visit?
We went to Fallujah.
Fallujah,
which is, but it was not far from Baghdad. We could do that easily over the day.
And what did you see that day in Fallujah? How did you see the process?
I think we saw an election that was well prepared. We saw a very peaceful city of Fallujah. We did not see massive amounts of voters going to the voting stations, and we saw perhaps that voters tended to be of age or grown up. We saw very few young voters. But we were not there at the closure of the polling stations, so I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive reply on the participation and the turnout, etc.
I see. How about your plan as a European country who has been also a part of the fight against ISIS under the international coalition? What is your plan for the next years to support Iraq, both militarily and civilly?
Yes, we are a partner with Iraq in the broad sense, really. We have been participating also with Swedish officers, Swedish soldiers in the coalition against ISIS, and they are here, of course, on request by Iraq's government, and as long as Iraq sees the need for our presence, we will continue to contribute to those missions.
Are you going to leave Iraq by the beginning of 2022? I mean, your soldiers, your troops?
That is up to the Iraqi government. They are here on invitation by the Iraqi government, but that is our planning goes beyond December.
I see. And do you still see the threat of ISIS as a real threat to not only Iraq, but also the international community? I mean, is ISIS totally defeated, or still there is ISIS threat present?
It's not completely defeated. I think Iraq has regained its stability. Iraq is in a completely different place now from what it was, say, 5 years ago. But we still see incidents. We see still some terrorist actions by ISIS. So it's not completely defeated. We also see worrying signs of related forms of terrorism, be it called ISIS or other abbreviations, in other parts of the world. We've seen that in Afghanistan. We've seen that in North Africa, etc. So this is also a struggle that we need to keep on the long term.
I see. Do you agree with the idea that if the foreign troops, especially the American troops, leave Iraq, the same scenario which happened in Afghanistan is going to happen again in Iraq?
I would not. I mean, I would leave that discussion for Iraqis themselves. As long as Iraqis want, the Iraqi government wants the presence of ours and other international allies, we will be here. So that discussion belongs to the Iraqis.
Nice.
I mean, let me just say that we do not see that the situation in Iraq is parallel to the situation in Afghanistan. It's two very different countries. Context is very different.
I see. And let's move to Kurdistan region of Iraq. What did you talk today with the President, Prime Minister, and Deputy Prime Minister of Kurdistan in your first meetings with them?
It's very positive discussions, because we have very positive relations, and we have very broad relations. The same relation that we have with Iraq, we also have with the regional government. We are here as partners. We are here as partners for security, for prosperity. We have human bonds. I think that is a starting point for us. We have the Kurdish diaspora in Sweden is a very big one. It's one of our biggest, and it's very dynamic. We have lots of successful Kurdish people, and that gives a strong interest for Kurdistan in Sweden, and it also, I think, gives some interest for Sweden here.
I see. And you tell me this, and it's true that there are very strong ties between the Kurdish community and the Swedish community. Between the two nations, there are very strong bonds. But still, Kurdistan is waiting for you to open a fully functioning consulate in Erbil. Why didn't you open a consulate until now? And is there any plan to open a fully functioning consulate in Erbil?
I mean, we are present in Erbil. The embassy has a section office here in Erbil.
But not a consulate, General?
It's not a consulate, but it depends on what you call it. I mean, we are present with a very active representative here, and we come frequently. I come, my colleagues from the embassy come. So we provide service to the Swedish Kurdish community here in Kurdistan. Now, Swedish Foreign Service does not operate on the same scale as other bigger European or non-European countries. So it's difficult for us to open a consulate of that scale. And we have very, very few consulates of consulate generals around the world. So we hope have our office here. We have our embassy in Baghdad that is open also to the same community. And we hope and we're confident that we provide a good, that we meet expectations of the services that they may have.
I see. I think you're from Gothenburg, Yotobori in your language. And I know a lot of Kurds from Iraqi Kurdistan region who live there. Can you tell me a bit about how the Swedish government deal with the Kurdish community in Sweden? Because to my knowledge, the biggest Iraqi Kurdish diaspora is in Sweden, not any other country of Europe or the world. In Germany there are a lot of Kurds from Turkey, from Iraq, from Syria, and from Iran. But when you talk about the Kurds from Iraqi Kurdistan region, most of them live in Sweden. How does your government deal with these people there?
Well, I think it's by now a quite well integrated community. I think the Kurdish immigration to Swedish started perhaps in the 70s. It went up in the 80s and 90s. So most of the members of the Kurdish diaspora will be perhaps second generation or been there for many years. And as I said, broadly speaking, it's a dynamic diaspora. It's well integrated. It's part of Sweden. The specific support. I mean, we have a Kurdish child in Sweden would receive language training in school, as other minorities. They get language training when that is possible. Of course, but that would be one element of specific support to the Kurdish diaspora. Otherwise, we try to work with integration in a broad sense. There is support to find a place in the labor market for new arrivals. For new arrivals in Sweden, there is also language training for adults. Yes, so that would be the main support.
Now you said new arrivals, and I'm going to talk about new arrivals, new immigration fluxes, let's call it. But before that, I would also like to ask you a question about, as long as I know, Sweden has been supporting NGOs in Iraq since 1990s. So what exact funds do you have to support the non-governmental organizations and the civil society here in Kurdistan region of Iraq?
We have a bilateral development cooperation program here in Iraq. We've had for that's also another part of our partnership and our support for stability and prosperity development. The development cooperation program is channeled through in different ways. A lot of it is support through the United Nations, but as you mentioned, there's also support through civil society organizations. And that is something that we work with anywhere we have a development cooperation program. And we believe firmly that the dynamic and civil society is key for building a vital and open democracy.
I see. And back to the new arrivals. There are people who are traveling to Belarus from Kurdistan region of Iraq, and also from Iraq, and also from other countries in the Middle East, willing to pass the borders of Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, and then make their ways to Germany or to Sweden to seek for refuge in those countries. How do you deal with these people if they made their way to your country?
I mean, that specific problem with the route that was that appeared through Belarus appears to be a cynical attempt to instrumentalize Iraqis in pursuit of better economic prospects in Europe. I mean, if you immigrate in any country in Europe, you have to do it legally. If you don't fulfill those requirements, you will have to return to your home country, and that is the case with the great majority of those who have left in that way.
So, and what are the legal ways you're talking about? Because especially now, many people in Kurdistan are, they have this idea in some part of their mind that they want to immigrate to Europe, and the illegal ways are very risky and dangerous. But you mentioned some legal ways. What are they?
Now, legal ways would be limited. I mean, you have to have close family. I don't know exactly the requirements, but it's clear that you need to fulfill very, very strict criteria to be able to move to Sweden today. And it is indeed unfortunate that a lot of people, perhaps especially young people, are misled and are being abused by traffickers.
I see. Okay, back to Iraq. The international community, especially in the latest elections, played a very important role. In fact, everything started after the Shireen revolutions, demonstrations, and then the elections took place, and more than any time before, the UN and the international community was involved in this. What's the vision of the international community and yours within that framework for the future of Iraq?
Well, the vision is to support Iraq's and the Iraqis' pursuit of a peaceful country, a stable country, a country that is also prospering economically, a country where the young people can also build a future and find a good job. So that's why we are supporting the elections through missions, through long-term support. That's why we have soldiers and officers here in the fight against ISIS. And that's also why we have a development cooperation program that aims to support a policy for increased prosperity for all Iraqis.
And how do you see the example of Kurdistan region within Iraq? How do you see this experience, which started like 29 years ago in 1992?
I mean, we were supportive of the Kurdish regional government and the institutions. We have as I mentioned, a very broad and very positive relation, and we are here to be a partner as well with the Kurdish regional government.
And you know, this question, I don't know, this is not a question to ask a foreign mission representative in Iraq, but still I'd like to ask you this question. There are too much of discussions about who should be the next prime minister of Iraq. And you know, there are a lot of different points of views about this, because political, sectarian, and ethnical differences in the country, and it's been the source of most of the crises in the country since many years. Who do you think should be the next prime minister of Iraq, if you want to answer this question?
No, I'm not going to, and I'm not going to. It would be. No, it doesn't correspond to me nor any other of the foreign or the international community to tell Iraqis who should lead their countries.
So you know, in most cases, you see different countries getting involved in this. But just tell me the profile. What kind of profile you think can help this country step forward?
No, I mean, Iraqi, like any country, and Iraq is facing challenges, great challenges. I mean, we all need, my country also needs politicians that are transparent, that are honest, that have a strong political vision, and then that can also lead a government that are representative of their people.
I see. My final question is going to be about your country. I've read a lot in history books about Vikings, who are like your grandfathers in Scandinavia. And the history is like full of wars, battles, and raidings on other countries. But today you see the Scandinavian countries as the wealthiest, most peaceful like countries of the world. What changed this society from Vikings to modern Swedish, Norwegian, and other like communities?
Well, I mean, the Vikings, that's around 1,000 years back in history. So a lot of things changed during those years. I think we have been blessed with a very peaceful recent history. It's been partially luck, coincidences, and we have escaped the 2 world wars, for example. But it's also been our own pursuit, of course, and we have built a society, a democratic society, a prosperous society that we are very, very proud of. But we still face huge challenges in our country. We face now the climate challenge. That's global, but we also face challenges like organized crime, we face shootings, we face the problems of racism and economic inequality, etc. So this, perhaps it's tempting to, or it's easy to have a romanticized build or picture of Sweden when you're far away, but we have our...
Still, when you compare it to the other countries.
Everything.
I asked this question because it's very important, especially to, like, for example, Iraq, because many people talk about the history of this piece, this part of the world, and they relate it to today. But your example, coming from the descendants like Vikings and becoming this modern society, is a very interesting example to study and to learn from, I think.
Yeah, we should all learn from history. We should not be trapped in it.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and I hope all success for you in your mission in Iraq and in Kurdistan region.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.